Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. A real pleasure of mine tonight to reconnect with someone I interviewed about a year ago, Barbara McBean, who runs a beauty college in Calgary, Alberta, and she's got a really compelling story. It's interesting how she's gone through some struggles in her life and has really accomplished great and wonderful things. And I thought it would be fantastic to check back in to find out how the last year has been and what's going on, because I would have thought that with in Ontario at least, salons and all the different places one goes to for beauty being closed and schools being closed, I wonder how your business has survived. So Barbara Bean, welcome to our show. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much. So, it's been a bit of a crazy time. I know health and wellness has been deeply affected by the global pandemic, and our business is included. I have college locations across North America, so Regina, Winnipeg, Red Deer, Lethbridge, LA. I'm sure I'm forgetting some of them, but there's quite a few of them. And obviously, in the last year and a half, we've had massive waves of being locked down, not being able to have any revenues. And of course, it's super hard on not only our staff who rely on that as income, but, the franchise owners, our head office staff. So, mentally, I think it's been something that, we've all been a bit drained by the process, by what's going on. But there's a certain amount of resilience, I think, that's come out of it as well, and a new perspective. So we've had to really change gears on what's our purpose. Because I think previous to the pandemic, I myself was very driven in terms of like creating this empire, having this career. I was very focused on, I don't want to say service to self, but I was really focused on being that boss babe and getting ahead and all those things. And in the last, I would say, year and a half, that's really switched for me, where because I didn't have those avenues of income coming in, I had to get up every day with a purpose and be excited about what I was doing, just for the sake of doing something that I loved. And it's brought me back to a lot of the things that I've done my entire life, as a hobby, but now I'm starting to integrate them more so as, my life's next segue, I think. So writing is one of them. I have 2 books on the go that, should be finished in a few weeks, which I'm really excited. They won't be, they need to be obviously edited and stuff like
Awesome.
that.
What are the books about?
So one of the books is just specifically on, health and wellness, how to, anti-aging. I'm obviously in that category where I'm almost 40 and, feeling vibrant and young and still, healthy in your own skin. And then the other book is about, a map to finding true love. So it's really about, it's a relationship.
There's a map available to find true love?
Yeah, like sort of a guide. I have a lot of, girlfriends and stuff like that come to me for advice all the time. And they're like, you have to put down the steps. You've got to write it down. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys, I'd have to write a book for that. So I basically decided to do that and just dedicate it to all my amazing girlfriends out there. And also guys, guys could read it as well for sure, but it's more geared towards, what we as women need to do to really capture that attention of our soulmate, I guess you could say.
Awesome. Well, we should talk about it. And I understand that you just bought a ranch, and that's where you're calling into us from.
Yes. Yeah. So I did that kind of mid-pandemic because I was tired of being stuck in the city with nowhere to go, and ended up with a beautiful piece of property. There's 480 acres, horses, it's paradise on earth. And, it's kind of brought me back to my roots. My family is very, if I go back to my grandma's era and stuff like that, they were all, fiddlers, and they played a lot of music, and they were all ranchers and stuff like that. So for me, I grew up at cow camp where they do the cattle drives and stuff like that. I have fond memories of those things. And it just really brought me back to I think a little bit of where my soul belongs, right?
Well, it's great to hear that you're doing well. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Barbara McBean and find out a little bit about her journey, because she's got a really compelling personal journey that motivated her to start the business and become an expert in health and wellness. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're checking back in with Barbara McBean, who runs a franchise of beauty colleges across North America. I checked in with her about a year ago to find out about her business, and it's an interesting situation because Barbara had a very traumatic experience, and she was in hospital and almost died. And it's really quite the story, Barbara, that you told me, and that sort of led to you deciding that you were going to become this this success in life and this health and wellness expert. Tell me, if you could, a little bit about what happened, what the story was, and why you ended up in hospital.
Yeah, so I've always been really driven, but my first relationship, unfortunately, we all kind of have that puppy young love, whatever it is. And my first fiance ended up getting addicted to multiple different types of narcotics, crack cocaine, methamphetamines, that kind of thing. And so I really struggled for 8 years trying to manage a home life with an addict. And I hit a breaking point. So I was in university at the time. I was working several jobs just to kind of hold everything together. And I guess for me, I just hit a point where it was too much for me to handle. And my brain the best way is kind of to describe it would be like an atrophy. Like I just got to the point where I was hospitalized and I couldn't swallow, I couldn't walk, I didn't have any, I lost all my dexterity, and that lasted for about a year. So a quick recap of that, like if you can kind of imagine what it's like, it's hard for me to even put myself back there. But when I look back on the experience, I actually couldn't even physically swallow my own saliva for a year. So it was like I would lay on this bed drooling because none of my muscles worked. Like I just didn't have that capacity to do all those normal functions that we normally do. At that point, I was basically told that my life was going to be very bland, in the sense that I would be living probably in a group home. I'd have to have 24-hour care. They basically put me through, it's a program that the hospitals offer that sets you up to be able to expect less, I think is kind of what they do. They kind of let you know that, you're not going to be able to live on your own normally in society. And it's kind of like
because you had
now you're just
issues?
Mental, but more so the fact that I just wasn't able to care for myself at that point. I mean, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't eat food, I couldn't walk very well, and definitely that was linked into mental health, but they didn't really know what the problem was. Like, that's the thing with mental health. And that's what prompted me to obviously go and study psychology at university after that experience. But I think a lot of the times, especially with mental health, the doctors don't know. Like, they're just giving their best stab at the dark as to why the brain is malfunctioning, and they give you some sort of a diagnosis, but they, who knows? It's the brain. It's really, it's not like having a broken arm, right?
And how'd you get out of this?
So myself, and basically I just worked with small things that I knew would work. Like I've always been somebody that's really into self-study. So cognitive behavioral therapy, really small measurable tasks. So for example, I'd get up in the morning and I'd say, okay, I'm going to make a pile of sticks in the yard, and that's my goal for today. Or I'm going to eat this bowl of mashed potatoes. And I would make myself these little tiny goals. And when I did it, I would give myself this like massive hug inside, like, you're the best, you did it, I'm so proud of you. It was all mental dialogue, but it was that reinforcement from within that allowed me to keep going. And I knew that the external world wasn't understanding what I was going through. I mean, they couldn't jump inside my body. So I was going to have to be my own motivator. And that's kind of been a theme throughout my entire life is, you're going to see something, you're going to see the exterior, and you're not always going to know what somebody's going through. And that doesn't matter, who you're looking at. You don't know what their internal world is. You don't know what they're going through. So you really do have to learn to be able to control your own thought world, the forms that you're creating in your mind.
What led you to this? Did you read a book? Did you have a mentor? What led you to this idea of this internal motivation that you needed?
Nothing. I didn't really read any books. Like at the time that this happened, I was quite young. Like I was maybe 25. So I had just finished the Miss Universe Canada pageant. I had moved away from my family, so I didn't have any family support. I really went through this journey completely on my own. So there wasn't any mentor or guru that was able to help me. And I think it was just that desire to overcome and survive. And to me, there was some little small voice inside me that said, there's more out there for you. You can do better than this. Like, don't, just because somebody gives you a diagnosis or somebody puts you in a category doesn't mean that is your destiny. And I think that's the biggest message I have to my students, especially when I mentor with students and I work with, anybody that I'm meeting in terms of the school, is we'll have a lot of people that will come in that have, extremely low self-esteem. They've come through divorce, they've come through abuse, they've come through all of these traumatic life situations. And so that is kind of blanketing over the success that they could have because they don't see themselves through a lens that's positive yet. And I always go back to, it's whatever you envision for your life is what you're going to create. And yeah, it's going to be hard. Like, I don't want to sit there and tell anybody that, oh yeah, it's super easy. It was a breeze. I just, got through it like nothing. No, it was extremely hard. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of times where I was banging my head against the wall or, saying, God, why me? Why is this happening? But as I get older, and a discussion I actually had the last week with a girlfriend is the reason that we go through these things, I believe, is so that we actually have experienced them and can genuinely help other people. Because how can I reach out and talk to somebody about an experience if I've never gone through something as traumatic? Essentially, it's just a lot of hot air. But when you have authentically kind of tread that path, you can actually offer some really solid advice, and it's authentic because you've traveled that path.
Well, the Greeks have a saying that we suffer our way to wisdom. And so, you only learn from the failures. You only learn from the tough times. You only learn from the mistakes. You don't learn if everything's just going well. So I agree with you. I think you're right. And obviously you learned. So you went through this process. How long did it take? And when did you open your first business?
Oh, so, basically, I think it was around 2005. It was 2005 that I had that year where I was really, really ill. After that point, when I got back on my feet to the point where I weaned myself off all of the medications, I got to the point where I could pick up a fork and actually eat food again and walk and that kind of thing. I did come back to Calgary, and it was just very much baby steps. I got back into oil and gas because I had my land administration certification. So I got back into oil and gas for a little bit of time just to kind of reaffirm myself in the office environment. And then from there, really started opening up side companies. So just getting myself going on the weekend. I've always been a tattoo artist, so I would be taking private clients for tattooing. And then it grew, probably around 2010 is really when I started unofficially teaching. Like, even though I was teaching one-on-ones, that's kind of would be the inception of Eternal Beauty Institute. I had the name, I wasn't incorporated yet, but things sort of started to gain some momentum at that point. And I started taking on, individuals to mentor in terms of teaching them methodology with health and wellness. And even so, with this period throughout COVID, I've realized that this journey that I've been on to teach, it really wasn't beauty courses that I meant to teach in the end. I love teaching, but I think
it's not beauty courses. Even though you've successfully opened a chain, franchise business of beauty colleges.
Yeah.
This isn't your calling.
Yeah. It's not, it's kind of, I'm always going to work my 8 hours a day and work hard for my franchisees and make sure that I do my very best. But I know my calling is to teach people about mental health, about how to live their best life, how to deal with addictions, how to deal with finding your purpose, how to deal with finding true love, how to deal with spirituality. All of those things are very near and dear to my heart. That's what I'm writing the books about. And because I've had this beautiful format that we've laid out in terms of the courses and the vocational courses and the e-learning portals, and I've had discussions with my team about this, they're all on board. We have this secondary platform that's going to be Inspire Me 360. The website's up right now, but we're just in the process of building it. We haven't really launched it in its full capacity, but all of the courses will be free. My vision is to have them in as many languages as possible, and it'll all be funded through our main vocational institutes. But the goal is, if somebody can't access mental health care, they can go through these courses. They'll take anywhere from a month to 3-4 months. Daily, there'll be activities, there'll be work, not worksheets, but things that you have to do to get yourself into a place where you can become stable again. But I don't want it to be anything that's ever charged for. And then also, I want to, in the next couple of years, get into hosting retreats. I have properties around the world that are beautifully set up, like the ranch, Costa Rica, Hawaii, that I could run amazing retreats. Now, again, I can't do that until everything within our head office is running flawlessly. And this, again, would be specific to people that have acute issues that they're wanting to deal with, but in a way that is moving away, I think, from the Western medical approach and more of a heart-centered approach. But keep in mind, my background is also science and anatomy and everything that we do at the school. So I don't want it to be too spiritually focused to the point where none of it makes sense and it's not applicable and you can't integrate it.
Fantastic. Sounds like you've been busy during COVID-19.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yep. Every day is a gift, right? So you have to make the best of it.
So tell us a little bit about your current business. So this is a beauty college. What do you teach at the beauty college?
We would kind of call it like a clinical medical college. So we do everything that is aesthetics based. So your skincare aesthetics programs, skincare technician, your technologies. So any type of the laser courses that you're interested in taking, fat freezing, cryolipolysis, radio frequency. So any kind of device-based course that you want to take, we offer absolutely everything. We also have a department in all of our locations that is for medical professionals. So the doctors, nurses, dentists, we train them on any cosmetic treatments that they want to offer in clinic. So that's things like Botox fillers, the vampire facial, so PRP microneedling.
Sorry, what's a vampire facial?
Okay, so basically, I mean, Kim Kardashian kind of made them famous, but it's microneedling, where you actually will take some of the blood plasma out of the client that you're treating, and then you're going to microneedle their face. So that's thousands of little micro perforations on the skin. That's going to elicit a micro trauma on the surface of the skin. The body is going to go into that area, do this massive internal healing. You're going to have a beautiful anti-aging result, and you're assisting it with your own DNA identical plasma that's coming from your own blood plasma. So then that's smeared back over the area that we treat. So super effective in terms of—
Oh my God, seriously, really?
Yeah. So we teach that program. But yes, so many different cool things that you can do for anti-aging now. And, we're on the forefront of pretty much anything that you can look at that's happening worldwide. We're bringing those courses. We develop that curriculum and bring them direct to the medical community.
And fat freezing, you mentioned. Does this actually work?
Yeah, absolutely. Cryolipolysis is an exciting, it's been around for a while, but essentially what we're doing is we're treating that area where you have that stubborn fat that's lingering, and in between the fat pad, the actual fat cells, it's kind of cool, and it's unique in the sense that all of the other cellular tissue doesn't respond the same way that a fat cell will respond to, below -9 temperatures. And we actually create what's called cell death. So those cells will be excreted through the lymphatic system, and then your fat pad shrinks and that little belly bulge is gone. So it is extremely effective. We have some sort of trademark treatments that we do where we pair it with radio frequency and ultrasound waves as well. But that's all taught in our courses, and the treatments work exceptionally well. We also do a non-surgical butt lift procedure, which the results are stunning. You can actually see within live time, we can lift the rear end and do one side, and it just looks like they've had a Brazilian butt lift, and the other side is, that is untreated, but it's a beautiful treatment as well. Just gets that backside nice and perky, and one of my favorites as well that we offer. How does
one do a non-surgical butt lift? Excuse my language, butt lift.
Yeah, so basically what we're doing is we're heating up the tissue. And in some cases, depending on where you have, excess fat, we may have to use some cryolipolysis to take care of little fat pockets as well and shrink those. But we want to redistribute the fat into the areas where you want them. So that nice plump, buttocks area is where we're going to redistribute the fats. We liquefy it, we kind of push it up through different massaging techniques and then with the different technologies, and you'll see that lifted rear end. We can also do the same thing in terms of a non-surgical facelift and neck lift. So we do teach those and offer those procedures as well. So we're opening up all of our locations have day spas within them. At head office in Calgary, we're opening a massive 12,000 square foot medical spa in a couple weeks now, and it's going to be beautiful. Probably one of the most luxurious spas in all of Canada. So I'm pretty excited to open the doors on that as well.
And when did you get into franchising?
So we started franchising in 2017, where we started to do that expansion. We have several groups I know that have been holding off on larger locations, Toronto, Vancouver, Edmonton, and down to the States, just waiting for the pandemic to be over. So we do have several other groups that are wanting us to build colleges for them. So we'll see what happens in the next 18 months. It's no small feat to open up a school, so I have to also pace myself and make sure that I do a good job for each and every franchisee that comes on board. But we just recently opened up Regina, and I know that the owner operators in Regina are planning Saskatoon pretty quickly as well. So just a matter of getting everything going for the franchise owners and making sure that they're super successful. They're getting out into the community and changing lives as well in their locations.
Barbara, if people want to check out your company and your spa and your school, what do they Google?
So if you're looking specifically for the schools, it's www.eternalbeautyinstitute.com. For the Medi Spas, we are relaunching the website here in a couple of weeks, and that's EB, so E as in Echo, B as in Bob, ebsalonspas.com. Anybody that's interested in franchising, it's eternalbeautyfranchise.com. And then for the wellness courses and the free courses, sorry, my earphone there is just popping out, would be inspireme360.com. And those will be probably up in a couple months as well.
We're chatting tonight with Barbara McBean, an owner of eternalbeautyinstitute.com. We're going to take a break and come back more with Barbara. We're going to ask her a little bit about these books that she's writing. Stay with us. Well, welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're chatting tonight with Barbara McBean, who owns Eternal Beauty Institute, which is a college for the beauty industry, and she's franchised her very successful business out of Calgary across North America. And she's shared with us this really compelling story of how she was in hospital, and they didn't think that she was going to have much of a life, and that she turned that around and is being extremely successful. And she now wants to pass on some of her wisdom to others through 2 books that she's written and a website and some courses and retreats that she wants to have. Barbara, sounds like it's a fantastic objective. Let's talk about them a little bit, if you could. So the one is a roadmap or a map to love, to finding true love.
Yeah, so it's kind of, again, it was sort of sparked by a lot of my girlfriends, maybe they're on their, they've gotten a divorce, they're in the middle of, life, mid 40s, early or late 30s, and they're not sure where to go. They're not the dating scene is different now. There's all these online apps, and it's very, I think, frustrating to figure out, where to go, how to not be jaded, how to not be embittered by what's happened in terms of your life story. And so they always come to me for advice. They're like, oh, you give the best advice. But, then they're like, well, write it down, write me a few pages. And I'm like, oh, guys, I have to do a book. Like, it's not something that I can just type into a few pages. So, during this last lockdown, I've definitely gotten a good handle on that book. I've got all the chapters laid out. Several chapters are written. I have a little algorithm. You need about 90,000 words to have a good, good book. And I can put down about 5,000 words a day, that's of quality writing. So I figure, about 18 days to produce a decent book. And that's kind of in my free time. So, if I give myself a window of 60 days, I can usually, I would think, be able to get everything done for the book. Now, I have been writing another book. It's a little bit longer. It's How to Operate Your Human Suit. And it's been in the works for about 4 years now. And I keep changing it. So as I learn more and more things, I go back, I edit the chapters, but that one's almost done. And I think definitely...
human suit. What do you mean by that?
Well, so from the perspective of how, I've gone through my journey, I'm a very introspective person. I feel like the body that I'm in is kind of like a suit that I'm wearing for this small period of time. And I'm learning how to operate it. And it's a bit frustrating because when you're born into the world, into society, into your family, there's no operation manual, and all of a sudden, you're going through life and all of these things start happening, puberty and, different issues in terms of anxiety or depression. And there's no operator's manual for this silly thing that you have to go through life with. So I thought, after all of the struggles that I've gone through with health, my own health and my own mental health, and I was in a good position because, of course, I've learned, or I think I've mastered, how to operate the suit fairly well. And I wanted to pass that on to other people, in a really simple operation manual type style.
So what are some of your suggestions on how to operate our suit better?
So a lot of it, like I said, comes from the way that you think. The thoughts to me are things. So you always want to mind your thoughts. Whenever I get something that is a negative thought, I always call them thought forms. But anytime you have, a pattern of thinking that's negative, you want to instantly isolate that, terminate that neurological pathway, and start replacing it with positivity. And that goes for positivity about yourself, so your own self-worth, positivity about others. So that's the other thing that I find a lot of with social media and the way that our society is based now. We can be a little bit critical of others and a lot of judgment, and you have to completely get rid of that. Like, I don't look at other social media very often. It's not in my daily dose of reality to criticize others or to judge other people. Everybody has their own path. Everybody has their own timeline, and they might be doing something that you would deem negative, but that's how they learn, and they're going to get through that, and they're going to come out the other side an amazing person. So just don't judge it. Just stay within yourself and work on yourself, but also don't be too harsh on yourself. If you do something that you weren't happy with, identify that, say, hey, you know what? This wasn't a good thing. It created guilt. It created shame. It created negative thoughts within myself. I'm going to fix that. And I'm going to be very attentive to that thing and make sure that it doesn't happen again. And then from a standpoint of understanding, you are what you eat. So what we put into our bodies, that's the fuel to our human suit. You really have to pay attention to that. I suggest things like heavy metal testing, knowing what your body, like what your sensitivities are in terms of food, your allergies, getting allergy tested, because anytime your body produces like a slight inflammatory effect within your cellular tissue, it's not going to be functioning at its optimal level. So the goal is always to, as much as possible, be functioning at your highest potential in terms of your, all of your cells as a collective. And so again, that book is about teaching you how to do that, showing you and pointing you towards how you can understand your gut biome, your your mental health. It's everything. It's such a large book that it's too hard to kind of fit into one interview, but I think that it will help a lot of people that are struggling out there.
Well, it sounds fantastic. So it's about positive thinking and replacing any negative thoughts with positive thoughts. It's about not judging other people. It's about not being overly influenced by social media and what's going on. It's about you are what you eat, and so therefore making sure that you feed your body the right stuff. Sounds like you've got a bunch of really good lessons in there, and I look forward to talking to you about it when you launch your book.
Absolutely. Sounds fantastic.
Okay, and so the other one is the roadmap to love life. And so what's the roadmap to true love? Tell us, please.
Well, so I think that it's all about alignment. So if, when people are out there and they're looking or they're seeking out this soulmate relationship or their perfect partner, they're often projecting, a lot onto the external world that, they're entitled to this. And so what I hope to teach through the book, and then all of the books will have like courses as well, that video courses that go through each chapter and each lesson. But you really have to understand that you have to be in alignment with that. Okay, you're searching for Prince Charming, or you're searching for your, the goddess that you want out there, but you're not representative of the other half of it. You have to make sure that you make over your life so you're the embodiment of what that Prince Charming would be looking for. Like, what is your family situation? Do you have good relationships with members of your family? How do you have hobbies? Are you successful? Are you somebody that would attract somebody to you? I mean, are you dynamic and interesting, and not from a superficial standpoint, but because you actually love life and you actually like creating things. The other aspect would be, are you embittered? Like, do you have this laundry list of frustrations that you're dragging around with you? That, those are the skeletons in your closet that once you let your guard down, you're actually kind of a nasty, bitter person inside. You have to clean that closet out and become that inner child again. You have to renew your innocence and your just spirit for joy and love and that vivacious spirit, and you will attract somebody that's on that same vibration. But again, a lot of this, this spiritual community, which I think is an amazing community, they do a great job of teaching some of these principles, but sometimes they make them so out there that the average intellectual linear thinking mind is like, yeah, that sounds cool, but how do I apply it? And it sounds like something out of, hocus pocus, right? And so there's a lot of good principles there, but we need to bring them back to the mainstream, where none of us have ascended into the light yet, right? So we're not there yet. So let's dumb those principles down a little bit in terms of creating that positive energy and figure out how to pragmatically put them to work in our 3D reality that we're living right now.
You're very articulate and you're very knowledgeable about these issues. How did you become so? Just reading, or just your studies, or talking to people, or what?
You know what? I'm a really big introvert. If you meet me in person, I'm always kind of listening. I'm a listener. So if I get into a group, I study people, I study mannerisms, I read. I'm an avid reader. So I'm reading probably 3 books a week. I love reading. Obviously, any writer will tell you the same thing. If you like to write, you like to see and dip your toes into other writers' styles of writing. So definitely, I've devoured many books in my life. But again, it's also the application. So when you are applying these principles to your own life, you can see if they work or not. Like, there's simple tests you can do. And it's just like, okay, so if you start thinking really negatively about somebody at work, and you're just like, you've got this negative energy around you and it keeps gnawing at you, eventually you'll notice how it just turns into something that happens in your life. It just becomes a negative event. If you can stop that train of thought before it even, starts speeding down the track, you'll notice that bad things stop happening to you. We create the negativity in our environment. We can control that by simply controlling the way we feel about our environment. And that's how you find inner peace. If I'm not upset, then I'm not upset. If I'm happy, then I'm happy. It's a really simple equation to getting yourself to the point where you just enjoy life. And the other thing as well, I think,
enjoy life.
Just enjoy life. Yeah.
So have you followed your advice? Has it worked for you? Have you found true love?
You know what? I'm building that absolutely right now. I have a great partner. It's a work in progress. But the thing is, again, with love, it is a two-part system, right? So when you're in a relationship, you have to start seeing that other party as a beautiful human being. I think a lot of a big mistake that couples make, especially people that are in long-term relationships, is they start putting unrealistic expectations on their significant other that they would never put on anybody else. So that's a good question to always ask yourself. Like, would you ever put this kind of pressure on your best friend or your acquaintance or your buddy or your coworker? When you step back, you look at that, you're like, no, I never would. So then why are you projecting all of this mass expectation on the significant other in your life? So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that is single that would read this book. There's going to be a lot of really great methods for correction in terms of a relationship as well, and how to bring out the love from a relationship, how to revive a relationship.
Barbara McBean, thank you so much for rejoining us and visiting back with us a year after our first show and telling us about your journey, about your beauty college, eternalbeautyinstitute.com, and about your two books that are under development. Really appreciate it. You are an inspiration. You've come through a lot and you're accomplishing a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brian. And thanks for having me on again.